So you're sitting in a room, you're drinking Code Red Mountain Dew, and in comes Howie Roseman, Joe Douglas, and they sit down next to you and they say, what is your number one priority? What is the one thing we have to accomplish this offseason to get this team back to being Super Bowl champions? Now me, I'm going to say without hesitation, you have to build in front and around Carson Wentz. And if you do that, this team has a shot to go back to the Super Bowl.
Still the cowboy, Mr. McLean. You Americans are all alike. But this time, John Wayne doesn't walk into the sunset with Grace Kelly.
Scary Cooper, asshole.
Oh, Diva! Oh, shit! Oh, shit! That was crazy!
Happy trails, Hans. Dallas still stinks. Yo, everybody, Lou King Ding back here, and I hope everybody's having a wonderful Monday, a great start to your week. Me, I'm going a little bit batty because I had to quit sugar because yesterday I was all frustrated with my internet not working, and after my stream of the Sixers, I ran and bought a bunch of Code Red and pounded that crap. I pounded it. So I had to start all over again today, and I hate when I quit sugar. I always get the worst headaches, but it is what it is. Anyways, in this video, what I want to talk to you guys about is what I think the main objective and the blueprint to this offseason for the Eagles to get back to being Super Bowl champions. I think when you look at this Eagles team, we know we're not in the best salary cap position. We're not in a good one. We know we're going to lose players. We're going to lose players like Nick Foles. We're going to lose players like Jordan Hicks. And most likely, there's no way that we can completely replace everybody we're going to lose, okay? Now, there are some guys that we may bring in and we may not know if they filled a need until the season starts. That's why this offseason is so important to Joe Douglas, Howie Roseman. What they do in free agency, in the draft, is going to go a long way to determining what this team does in 2019, okay? It's just the way it is. When you look at the free agents out there, okay, we don't have a lot of money to go spend on all these free agents. We're not going to fill every hole with some free agent that we spend a lot of money on. We just don't have it. And really, to be honest with you, a lot of the guys who are supposed to be free agents right now, okay, that are technically supposed to be free agents once the period starts, they're going to be gone. They're going to be off the board. They're going to have guys like DeMarcus Lawrence, Jadeveon Clowney, C.J. Mosley. These guys are most likely going to be franchised, or they're going to do long-term contracts with the team they're at, and they're not going to go anywhere. Then you get guys like Deshaun Jackson, who probably will become a free agent and get cut before the free agency period begins. Then you have guys like Leonard Fournette, who may get traded. So there's a lot of moving parts right now. We just don't know because the franchise tag period hasn't even begun yet. But what I know is this. This team can't fill every hole with the cap space, with the money that they have. They are going to have to rely on the draft, free agency, the waiver wire, player evaluations. They got to find talent from places that other teams don't look. Okay? Now, with the resources we do have and the money that we can spend and will be able to spend, I think the main priority, the main focus has to be on protecting and building around Carson Wentz. It has to be. Okay, we don't have Nick Foles next year. We're not going to have that luxury. We're not going to have a backup quarterback who could come in and outplay Tom Brady. We're not going to have it. That means we have to keep Carson Wentz healthy. We have to keep him healthy, and we have to get him back to MVP form. Now, I think there's one way to do it. Build in front of him and build around him. So when we look at what's in front of him, we look at an offensive line that can be pretty good at times. They were a bit banged up, and he took a beating when they were hurt. Remember, Lane Johnson had to sprain the MCL he played through, was supposed to miss a month. These guys, they were hurt for a long period of time. They kind of got it going at the end of the year, but we have a lot of questions. Is Jason Peters coming back? Is he coming back? I don't know. It's a good question. But if he doesn't, what do we do at left tackle? We put Big V there. We draft the offensive tackle. I mean, that's always risky. You could draft the offensive tackle, left tackle in the first round. And then what? He may not be ready to play the role. Do they believe Jordan Mailata can play the position? Do they move Lane Johnson from right tackle to left tackle and put a Big V at right tackle? I don't know. But they're going to have to figure that out. And if they keep Peters, then for one more year, I think then they're fine at left tackle. I'll tell you another position on that offensive line that I think needs a major upgrade, and that is the left guard position. When it comes to left guard, I'm really not a big Seumalo guy. I'm not a big Wisniewski guy. I don't think the Eagles are a big Wisniewski guy. And I think they got to find a way to upgrade that left guard position. Do they think Matt Pryor can play it? I don't know. But, maybe, just maybe, when you're in the first round, maybe you get a guy like a Cody Ford falls to you. Now, he can play offensive tackle. He's also rated high at the guard position. Maybe you bring a guy like that in and you play him his first year as a guard, then eventually move him outside. I don't know. But the Eagles have to upgrade that line. They have to fortify that line. They already got talent there. They got some good guys. You got Brooks coming back from an injury. I love Lane Johnson. I love Kelsey. If Kelsey doesn't retire, which I don't think he will. But you have to make sure that that line is fortified, and if you add some depth to it, that would be great too. Now, the other way you protect Carson Wentz is you get a running game. You give him a running game. I'm not talking what we had last year. I'm talking go out and get a franchise running back. Now, there are a few ways to do this. You can spend money in free agency. You can trade. You can draft. Now, I think the most likely scenario is probably the Eagles bring in a LeGarrette Blount type guy, maybe somebody a little better, and they draft the running back in the second or third round. I could see them doing that. One guy you may want to consider on the free agent market, if you're going to consider a running back, now that Hunt is off the board, I don't think the Eagles can afford Le'Veon Bell, but maybe a Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman is a very, very talented running back. He's really never been the lead back, and there's always been questions about if he could be. Maybe he gets hurt too much. I don't know. But he's very, very talented, and he's only 26 years old. And the fact that he's only 26 years old and Carson is 26 years old, I have no problem with that. Now, if you sign him, I still probably would draft the running back. I just would, And the Eagles have to do that. They have to go out and get a running game. The running game takes pressure off your quarterback. Takes pressure off him, and it helps to keep the defense honest, especially against your passing game. Now, the other way you protect Carson Wentz is you acquire a speed wide receiver. You get a legitimate deep threat on the outside, a number 2 wide receiver. This keeps the defense honest. It keeps those guys back, and they always have to worry about the guy getting behind them. This helps open up things for Carson underneath, and this is another way in which you can protect your quarterback. The key to this season is protecting Carson Wentz, but you don't just do it by putting a bunch of great offensive linemen. That helps. You have to give him a running game. You have to give him wide receiver threats that can go deep. Now, I would consider Deshaun Jackson if he's a free agent. I would bring him back for a year. I bring him back for a year or two. I would have no problem with this because I still think he can play, and I think he can play at a Pro Bowl level. Mike Wallace, to me, is too old, but maybe you bring him back cheap, and you go out and you draft yourself a speed wide receiver early in the draft. Could be, but the Eagles are going to have to figure this out because I don't know that there are a lot of really good wide receivers out there, Aguilar's like $9 million. Are the Eagles going to keep him and pay him $9 million? Or do they let him walk and maybe bring back Golden Tate, put Tate back in the slot, and then get a speed wide receiver? Very interesting questions, but the resources the Eagles have, from draft picks to cap space, I think you have to spend most of it on building around your quarterback. You have to build around Carson. You have to get him to be healthy for 16 games. Get him back to that MVP level. This is key for the Eagles, in my opinion. This is the biggest thing that they can do. This is the number one priority. Now, it's not just one position. It's not just a running back. It's not just a running back. It's a running back. Fortifying your offensive line. Getting a speed wide receiver. Build in front of him and around him. That's what the Eagles' priority should be this offseason. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, what about the defense? The defense needs help. Yeah, the defense does. There are holes. There are things to do. No doubt, I would love to build this defense and build it up and spend a lot of money on it and get a lot of resources. No doubt about it. But with the salary cap, the way things are structured, I don't know that the Eagles can do that, okay? Are they going to be able to replace Jordan Hicks? I don't know. I mean, if C.J. Mosley came available, sure, I would make a run for a guy like that. DeMarcus Lawrence, if he somehow became a free agent, I would make a run at that. But most likely, those things aren't going to happen, and the Eagles are not going to have all the money to go spend on the offense and on the defense. It's just not going to be the way it is. What the Eagles need to do, in my opinion, on defense, okay, is you got a lot of guys coming back in that secondary. You need to let them play. You need to hope that Sidney Jones develops. You hope that, guys like Jalen Mills can come back. Rasul Douglas can continue to progress, okay? LeBlanc can continue to be what he was. And then Avonte Maddox, he's got to continue to get better and better, and I think he will. But you have a lot of guys, you have a lot of young guys there that you have to let develop and hope that they can play. Middle linebacker, they're going to have to figure a way out. Maybe you get a linebacker in the mid-rounds. Maybe you could get one cheap for a year or two in free agency. Okay, if I spend money on my defense, when I spend money on my defense, I am going to spend and put my resources into that defensive line. The defensive line is the key to that whole defense. Get pressure on the quarterback, and everything else will fall into place. Now, the Eagles are going to lose Brandon Graham, most likely, okay? Unless he goes and he gets a deal he doesn't like and then decides to come back, which is great. I would love it. But one option the Eagles can do, okay, because like I said, I don't think DeMarcus Lawrence will be available. I don't think Jadeveon Clowney will. But one guy, and this is one option, okay, they may be able to get Ziggy Ansah for a 1-year deal because he's been hurt the last few years. Maybe he wants to come and do a prove-it deal for the Eagles. Then in the first round or the second, you draft another defensive end. You draft a defensive end, you come in, you bring Ansah in for the year, you have the rookie, and you let him play kind of like in the rotation like the Eagles like to rotate. You have Michael Bennett coming back. Derek Barnett has to take the next step. He needs a big year next year. We need him to be what a first-round defensive end should be, and I like him. I think he will. Okay? But Ziggy Ansah, just for like on a 1-year cheap deal, may not be the worst thing. You may be able to do it. Who knows? Timmy Jernigan, he's making like $13 million against cap. Will he renegotiate? Will he give the Eagles some cap space? I don't know. Or will he become a cap casualty? These are things we don't know. But when I'm putting my resources into this team, I'm building in front and around Carson Wentz. And on my defense, my main priority on defense is to fortify that defensive line, to build up that defensive line. Get me another defensive end. Get my guys like Derek Barnett healthy, and let that defensive line, let it be what it's supposed to be. Because when that defensive line is getting pressure on the quarterback, everything else falls into place. And that's where I would put my money and spend my resources, draft picks, salary cap space. That's where I would put it on defense. Other than that, I'm going hardcore on the offense. Now, maybe Leonard Fournette or somebody like that will end up becoming, somebody the Eagles could trade for. The Eagles may trade Foles. They may franchise him and trade to the Jaguars. I don't know it would be for Leonard Fournette. I think it would be for a third-round pick. But, hey, that's not a bad thing either. So, the key to the Eagles season, the key to getting back to being a Super Bowl champion, all depends on the health and the performance of Carson Wentz. And you got to go out and you got to make sure you build in front and around him and make sure that he gets back to that MVP form. We don't have the luxury of Nick Foles, and that's the key. And if the Eagles do that this offseason, they will, I think, once again, be contending for a Super Bowl championship. And that is my blueprint to becoming, once again, Super Bowl champions. With that said, tell me what you think. Take care. Talk to you later. And don't be a dingbat.